I'm here with the three founders, the three partners of Code Advisors, a new investment bank, founded by Quincy Smith, Michael Marquez, and Fred Davis from left to right. Hey, guys.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming in. Agreeing to do a quick video interview. We'll have a poster on this as well, but I want to hear you guys talk about the bank and what you guys want to do and accomplish in the next couple of years.
So the brief history of the bank, and I think recognize that starting a bank isn't necessarily the most newsworthy thing in the world, so thank you for your time on doing it. But the brief history of banking is, about 20 years ago when you and I were out there and lucky to be enough around companies like Netscape, there was,
20 years ago I was in college.
So 95.
Yep. When you were at Netscape. Or you were almost,
It's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Good start as bankers.
Math isn't really that important. So.
It's more about the positioning of the numbers than the numbers themselves. When we were lucky enough to be in and around that company, there was a bank called Hamrick & Quist that was extremely good at what it did in that it was helpful for advice in and around transactions, and often some of the best stuff that it ever did never materialized in some sort of a fee around a transaction that got done, but instead was just solid advice on a pile of other things. H&Q wasn't alone. They had Robertson Stevens, Alex Brown, Montgomery. They were known as the Four Horsemen, if you read Wikipedia. And that was in a time where there was clearly far less technology innovation and less need for media to come up and talk technology. We'd argue that now there's, obviously we wouldn't argue it's a fact, there's more technology innovation going on today more than ever. And there's more of a need for media to speak technology to the extent that it represents multiple platforms, multiple ways to get paid for your content. And yet there are fewer banks that have concerted efforts in the new media and technology space. So we're just hoping to be able to be one of those players.
Can you talk a little bit about your backgrounds? It's pretty varied. So, Fred?
So I actually come from law, which it's unusual to be going into banking. But the recent history is working with a lot of the digital media companies who are trying to figure out how to monetize content on the web. We're kind of majoring in music and minor in video. And
is there anyone you didn't represent? But seriously, your clients included, Hulu?
Yes.
Yeah, MySpace, of course.
Correct. YouTube. I Like, Last.fm, Spotify.
Everyone.
We did not represent Pandora, did not represent Lala. That's easier to answer that way,
Great.
for various reasons. But,
but you know all the labels intimately, and
sure.
You'd work with the startups to help.
Yeah, we never represented the labels, always represented the media companies trying to figure out ways and new business models to monetize music. And that's whether it was early downloads or subscription or free, free ad-supported streaming, whatever the new models are, we focused on that.
Any of those work?
They're all going to work.
Really?
The question
Even
is,
free streaming, MySpace music, current model.
Free is not a dirty word in music. There's always been free with music. It was called radio. Unlimited interactive free is the dirty triple play word. So we have to find out the right balance between limited free and monetization, and that's a balance. We're not learning overnight. It's going to take a little time.
Well, luckily, we still have BitTorrent, right? So unlimited free on-demand music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then in the video space, we talked about Hulu, but others as well, and just represented abroad and YouTube. So YouTube before the acquisition.
YouTube before the acquisition. YouTube through the creation of Evo.
Yeah.
And YouTube now, and really focusing in the music video area. But
so with this great law practice, why in the world would you have your own law firm? Why would you stop to join these guys?
It's a good question.
He thinks
is there a good answer?
That's a very good question. No, because evolving into the space, what I saw is having the intimate relationships with the companies, and I saw all the transactions that were going around with Bebo that I work with with I Like, and the bankers were, quite frankly, getting the business that I should have been getting.
But to be frank, because I've known you for a while, people were coming to you for legal advice all the time. Most of the time, they're coming to you for business advice. The same advice you're going to be giving them at Code Advisors.
Right. Yeah, it's a very natural, logical evolution to play the banker role in.
All right, Michael.
So my background, I started out as a computer programmer with Anderson Consulting in their Internet Center of Excellence. Did that for several years, and then went into banking at Robertson Stevens. And so that's kind of where a lot of the history is, what Quincy referenced as well with Hamrick & Quist. Same way at Robertson Stevens, it's really kind of getting back to the heart of relationship banking. And then from there, spent the last portion of my career in corporate development, first with Yahoo, and then as head of corporate development and business development at CBS.
What were some of the companies you bought at Yahoo? Were you
So
involved in that Project Fraternity, the billion-dollar acquisition of Facebook they attempted?
So I can't speak to the specific ones that we didn't do, but I can definitely talk about the ones that we did do. So Oddpost, Fairchase, Delicious, Fairtosoft. Those are some of the acquisitions that I did.
Okay, great. Quincy?
Started at Morgan Stanley, joined Netscape, then started the Barksdale Group with Jim Barksdale, Peter Curry, and Dan Reimer. Then joined Allen and Company, and then joined CBS for 3 years, and recently left in January, but never really left as CBS as our first client.
You actually, all those years at Netscape, where I was actually your attorney,
Yes.
junior attorney, and you were in Corp Dev. All those years, you just sort of sum up as was at Netscape. I mean, those were some trying, dramatic years.
By the way, to the extent you want more color on it, yeah, it was an honor, man. I mean, the Netscape experience was an unbelievable thing, and I had this sort of schizophrenic job that I don't think is legal anymore, where you had corporate development, as you pointed out, but also investor relations. So mainly it meant working for Peter Curry.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. We did 16 transactions, we did 9 joint ventures, we did a pile of investments, and it was a whirlwind time with a great group of people. So yeah, no, the Netscape experience was an unbelievable one. When it sold AOL, we decided to start the Barksdale Group and then move from there.
So let's talk about the Quincy and Mike, the time you spent at CBS. You bought CNET, right? Was that the first big acquisition you did? The first
Last.fm,
was
then
before
Wall Strip,
CNET.
then
Okay.
CNET.
Wall Strip was tiny, right? Like 5 million or less. Okay, so Last.fm and CNET. How do you feel about those acquisitions? How have they done since you acquired them? Do you think that was the right strategy for CBS? And how did it go?
Yeah, so at the time, CBS, in the split from Viacom, didn't have a huge online presence. It did have Sportsline, and the thing that we learned about in Sportsline is ranked by uniques about 140th worldwide uniques per month overall as a property. Sportsline was amazing because it was fantasy sports. We've talked about this before. The beauty of fantasy sports is it shows how the web is a new medium. People play from Tuesday through the following Thursday, and on Sunday they're more than psyched to watch the football game in a regular plasma screen television environment. So we thought about what's the fantasy of music, and Last.fm very much fit in that category from our perspective. It was discovery. It wasn't as much just about streaming stuff, it's about learning more and things that are additive to the existing medium. Plus, it had a great international footprint. CBS, obviously 90% US, was looking to diversify outside. And then CNET. What we always thought about CNET was always bigger than CNET Networks, which is to say it was CNET, but it was also BNet, GameSpot, and all kinds of other things. Plus, it had a really good team, an adult team that thought about how to make money on the web in categories that CBS understood.
Yeah.
So I'd say overall, and CBS just reported last Thursday, the interactive group has always been a strong group in there. And what we think about first inside of CBS when talking about the internet is how the web can be additive as opposed to how are we regurgitating our television shows online all day.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk now about the bank. So you guys are differentiating yourselves from some of the other banks out there because you're not just focusing on jumping in, helping with the transaction, getting your fee, saying you want to be a real long-term partner to these companies. And you look back at some of the banks, Hamrick & Quist and Robertson Stevens from the 90s in particular that we worked with when I was a lawyer, and certainly I think they were developing those kinds of relationships. But is it realistic today to sort of assume that you can do that? And tell me about some of your clients and how you're working with them already and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, do these clients, they want this kind of, sort of long-term relationship with you? Are they embracing you the way you want to be embraced?
So that's the hope so far, and keep in mind we're a startup, so it's hard to tell, early on out of the box. To get a validation from a company like CBS on the cool, company side is a great one, and then I'm going to ask Fred to talk about Spotify and our relationship there.
Those are the two early
example.
clients you're disclosing now.
Yeah. So we do think there's a need. We think there's more of a need than ever for doing it, and we think it's important that we're expanding the role of investment bank. We think bankers are doing a great job today. We think transactions are heating up. Whether that be public markets with the likes of an open table and the unbelievable thing that Jeff Jordan and his team are doing again and again, quarter by quarter, to the transaction side of all the deals that have gone down in the last little while, to the other transaction side that nobody's really productively or proactively thought enough about. Capital raises, both secondary markets as well as late stage private, are back. and more innovation than ever. As you always point out, the role of this sort of second and third generation entrepreneur is there. So you have guys that are going to bat that have been through this before, and that kind of experience just makes them much more able. But we think there's an opportunity to kind of expand the role of investment banking now. We don't think it's a bad word. We're psyched to be bankers. And we've been in a position where we think we can offer things like business development help, content rights help, help find board members, and be with companies over the long term.
And you don't charge for that, right? You still charge just for...
Usually you get paid by a transaction. Now, you know, based on your background at the Great Wilson Sonsini, that there's a whole process that has to go through with this first. You have to file with FINRA. You have to make sure you get SEC approvals. In the meantime, by the way, we are piggybacking the broker-dealer license of the Great Hambricht. So W.R. Hambricht, which, more or less, Bill's a lightning rod for entrepreneurs in the community and always super smart on it. We also think working with him is additive in that he cares more about the capital markets for now, near term.
Plus he has the license.
Plus he has a license. Plus, yeah, but we're actively working with them, trying to identify things we can do together.
And you'll get paid for transactions. Are you going to try to get paid for other things as well in these relationships, or?
Well, ultimately, we hope that over the next 9 months, 12 months, God willing, we get full approval by FINRA to make sure that we have our own licenses. So you go do underwriting.
Your billing model your fee model is exactly the same as any bank. It's transaction based.
It's transaction based. I'll make one caveat, and I was lucky enough to understand this and get this explained to me while I was at Allen & Company. There is an engagement type of relationship you can have with some of the larger companies. When I was at Allen & Company, I had that with CBS, and I also had it with Comcast. Okay. And those are the kind of things we look to emulate, where you're not working with them on transactions, but you are overall helping them understand strategically where they want to be in this space.
Are you already running into conflicts of interest where you're working with one company, you just can't work with someone else? That must be something you're running into. Or can you represent both sides?
Well, representing both sides and conflict of interest, I don't feel that we are yet. Do you feel that we are at all? I don't think we are yet.
You want to talk to that one?
I don't think that we are yet either.
Well, with CBS, you're representing the buy side. They're going to be out there acquiring companies, presumably, right?
Well, chances are good if CBS is doing a buy side thing. There are probably some other relationships with larger banks that they'll ultimately use to do the actual transaction. So maybe there's a chance to jump to the other side and represent the company they're buying. On conflicts, we are super sensitive about it. So I'd say we skew more defensively there. And if we do think they're a conflict, we probably can't work with them. But it is early, as Fred said.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really trying to dig into that or make any. It was more just. It seems like banks sometimes pick a side, and you guys seem to be on both with Spotify and your two first clients that you're announcing. You seem to be on both the buy and the sell side. So just wondering.
It's a great observation. Look, in an ideal world, and I don't know who coined this expression. It wasn't us, but we want to be bankers for the deal. We're out there because we really believe in it. The deals that we've done in the past, I'll point to like advertising.com to AOL. We did because we thought it was the right thing for the environment. Not even better for AOL individually and better for ad.com. It was better for the users and better for the advertisers.
You were part of that deal?
Yeah, we helped to sell ad.com to AOL when I was at Allen & Company.
Okay, great.
But part of it also is coming up with the idea, making connecting the right people, making it the right presentation so they speak the right language, so both sides can even understand why they should be acquiring or be acquired. And then the technical, actual deal part is a separate part of it that necessarily we don't have to do or we can do. But a lot of the work is done with the idea in the introductions, and that we can do with both sides.
But there's a real need to not just understand the technology and how these services work, but to explain them to people who don't think about them as much day to day.
We do a lot of translating between the two cultures and the two industries. It's a lot of the special sauce that we have, and that's that. You have to feel that. You can't learn that.
There's no way we can credibly explain how we do that on film without looking like idiots. So we'll hope to put our heads down and prove it.
You guys talk about being a startup. Have you actually raised initial capital? Do you have investors?
So as you know, the advisory business is a strong and profitable business if done right. So you don't need to raise a pile. We have no plans to raise a fund. To the extent that we do have friends that want to be supportive of us, we might try to take in some existing capital, but it wouldn't be material for the most part.
Friends and family.
We're up and running with nothing there.
And what about additional partners?
We're a startup. Marquez's black card aside, we're in the business of making sure we fly coach in middle seat all the time.
With the black card, you're referring to the American Express black card that Mike apparently has. So.
I don't fly middle seat.
I didn't bring it up first. You did.
I'm in the middle seat right now.
little bit about the way you guys think about the future of media online and offline, and how
I'd
the
love to talk
conversion-
about that.
And because it seems to be the area you're really focusing on, which makes sense to me. But I'd love to let's start with video, I guess, and let's start with music. I think it's supposed to. Besides the fact that you've known and represented every single person in the music industry online, and then know everybody offline as well, putting all that aside, and the people you know and the companies you support, what do you actually think is going to happen with music, online, and how are these guys, the labels in particular, going to make money in the future?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the $64,000
And
question.
just give me your answer in 10 seconds or less.
Exactly.
As he turns up the heat.
Is the monetization going to be about ownership or access? That's the heart of the issue. And you have a lot of very successful companies, iTunes and Amazon and Topspin and Napster Store and Real Network Store that are focusing on ownership. But then there's access, and that's where you get companies that are dealing with access through free ad-supported streaming and through subscription.
Yeah.
And that's where you have the Spotifys of the world and the MySpaces of the world and the Mogs and all the new breed of companies coming up. And it's about that music everywhere.
And you think access is the future?
Music everywhere.
So
Because
not storing songs on your hard drive and buying them.
as long as you can have access to it
You don't
everywhere,
need
it both can exist.
Yeah.
The MP3 doesn't have to be a transitory technology, but as long as you can get your music everywhere is what the consumers are going to be paying for. And right now you can't. Books would be a lot less valuable if you couldn't take them out of your home.
Yeah. And what will consumers pay for access? I mean, given that there's free options, although illegal, there's always the radio, there's things like Pandora, but what will they pay for? What do you think?
I think there was one solution in the old school model, which was a CD. There doesn't have to be one solution yet. There could be different demographics that are going to want different things.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the older generation will still want to own. Some of the newer generation will just want to be able to play it on their iPhone.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a one-stop solution. Will it be bundled into your ISP in your home? Will it be bundled into your wireless service provider on your phone? Will it be through apps? We don't have to have one solution.
But it seems like people are willing to pay for mobile access in particular.
That's the
right?
first thing.
Spotify seems to be showing that people want to pay that premium 12 or 10 euro fee particularly for the mobile app access.
That is one thing that Spotify is showing with real-time data in Europe right now, and that's why there's so much excitement here about it coming.
Yeah. What do you think is the right? What do you think there is the right fee for a user per month or per year to have access to any recorded song ever on your phone, online, whatever? You think people will pay $60 a year, $100 a year? What do you think is sort of the right point to charge?
I'm biased because I still remember growing up and think that Led Zeppelin and Eric Clapton are very valuable.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for the content owners to look at the history of the world music only being worth $2 or $3 a month.
Yeah.
It's very tough. And maybe it's going to be channeled. Maybe you're going to be able to buy rock music for a certain price and country music for a different price. Everybody always keeps thinking it's a one-price-fits-all model. It doesn't have to be that way. And maybe it has one value at home and one value that's mobile, and you can window it. We're at the first stages of this.
Have the labels ever looked at the ARPU of a user back in the heyday when they were still, like say 1995?
Yes.
Did they ever say an average user of music, say in their 20s, they're going to spend this much a year on concerts and CDs? Was that ever done? And what was that number?
Well, there was a number that was only now are we looking at ARPU. Back in the 80s, they weren't big.
Just units sold. They just cared about selling units. Yeah.
It was just about selling. And they never really analyzed how much free did you give away to sell. In the heyday, you sold 1 million copies, but 100 million people probably heard the song. Think of all the waste, if you will, to think about that. But you also had to buy 10 songs to get one.
Yeah.
And it was an artificial model.
Yeah.
We're back to the old days where you could buy tracks. The Beatles first came out as a singles band. Only later did albums start taking over where the singles were. But now they're looking at ARPU, and now it's an artificial analysis because of the balance is all off right now.
What year did they make the most money?
2001.
2001. What was gross revenue in the
I don't
industry?
know that often, but they sold in America. I think there were about 750 million CDs sold, and now we're about 380 million. I mean, it's dramatically down from U.S. sales of CDs.
Yeah.
That doesn't include all the iTunes tracks and the ringtones and the subscription business. I mean, it's not as bleak financially as that. but you can see the decline in the CD.
Do you think the music industry has made good choices with the benefit of hindsight over the last decade and a half? Or were they sort of forced into that? Or
I think the music industry has made a series of mistakes only. And it's
based on being morons, or based on just faced with what they were facing, they made the right choices at the right time, and they turned out to be the wrong choices?
There's you can't be. It's very difficult to be judge and jury because they have
I find it
P&Ls
extremely
to worry
easy.
about. Yeah, I understand. I understand. But there's a consortium. They have a partnership with the artists that sometimes we don't appreciate.
Yeah.
And they have investments that they make in creating the music that we all love. And they're publishers that write, and songwriters and producers, and there's an entire ecosystem that sometimes out here on the West Coast, people forget about the investment, the time. Think of all the songwriters now who don't benefit the same way that they did with the sale of CDs, or the producers. That's not fair.
Right.
It's those are the directors and the screenwriters of the movies. Somehow we seem to appreciate their value in the ecosystem more. So, so they're sympathetic to it, but they were never. The music industry was brought up learning about how to make records, not how to distribute them.
Yeah.
And nobody had that expertise, and we've been very critical of them to think that they're going to learn this muscle overnight, given the rapid changes that are going on. So they haven't made a lot of right choices. They've made very few correct choices. But at least they're now trying, and you have to give them credit for that.
Quincy, we've talked before about your views on video and where it's going online, and also the fact that the ad rates that the offline guys are able to get don't really. There's no real correlation to online, where there's lots of reporting and the people are paying in different ways, and offline they're still paying in the old way. And how does that all come together? Does the offline rates do they plummet as things move online, or are you able to maybe add more value online and get better rates?
Yeah, so these are all good questions. As you said, we do talk about these ones a lot. It's something that we spend a lot of time on, and hopefully can be one of the theses of us going forward. By the way, as a segue, I like hearing Fred. I was learning from him to begin with, but this is the kind of thing we're talking about for code advisors. We have to have points of view. In the old days, you had a banker, and then you had research guys. Research guys generally were the best bankers on the planet because they thought about it a lot, and bankers would put the airman tie on and go in and win the business, being the nice folk that they were. In this particular case, and in this space in general, the bankers need to know what they're doing. So, like it or not, on the opinion, we have to have them, and we have to think about them, and we have to create thesis around mapping out universes as to which way we're going to go. So, long-winded way of segueing to video. First thing is different from music. 2 minutes of CSI is the greatest thing that could ever happen to 44 minutes of CSI, which is to say the song can't kill the album. It's a preview that you can actually monetize and bump more previews to begin with. So it's better suited in television for this kind of distribution to begin with. The second is, which is why I never like the criticism of how is television not going to go the same way, because it's a very different kind of economic model and different preview model. With respect to television, if you think about the future of television being video, you have a much better proactive, aggressive way to extend your business going forward. If you think about online and TV as separate, you've got a problem, because you're setting up a dichotomy and you're making it so that your online buyers are different than your on-air buyers. And as soon as that happens, 9 times out of 10, your online buyers are the same ones who buy Google keywords and who generally generate targetability, ROI, as opposed to reach, frequency, engagement, and part of the magic. So one of the things that at least we really believe in at CBS, which is why we structured our sales group so close to the network sales, is this isn't the future of television is video. As soon as Joanne Ross, who runs network sales from CBS, gets a client that asks whether or not they can buy something online as well as on air, then the answer is yes. That's called March Madness on Demand. And that's the beginnings of, which is why we embrace so early, television, TV everywhere and authentication. If you really believe in its most elegant state, what that really means is it doesn't matter what screen you watch Ghost Whisperer on, and we know you do. It doesn't matter what time you watch Ghost Whisperer on. What should matter is you watched it, it got counted, preferably by some third-party referee like, Nielsen. And I do have to say Nielsen in that case because that's what the major ad buyers listen to. And then you get paid for it. So assuming you can create that kind of environment, that matters a lot more. Right now, unfortunately, that means ideally packing an ad for ad or get closer. And the only way so then you immediately get a raft of criticism of people aren't used to watching ads on television. How can you make sure that they want to watch ads online? If the content's good, they'll sit through it. We have empirical evidence and direct evidence to suggest that. So the rule number 1 of content is own more of the rights around your content. Rule number 2 is, make sure it's good. Easy to say, difficult to execute on. Once you have that, set up an infrastructure so that online and on-air are sold in tandem. Then your pricing, because you're alluding to the fact that sometimes CPMs online are much higher. I always remember the online guys would say, oh, well, we're sold out on online, that's great. Well, you either don't have enough, or you're not selling enough to buyers. What happens here is there are not enough online buyers, right? We always say the fastest growing group of online video right now or the fastest growing market inside of online is online video. That's great. It's growing from 600 million to 1.2 billion by most third-party estimates. 1.2 billion. I have 70 billion reasons.
How much of that is CBS? How much of that is YouTube? How much of that is...
So, again, a lot of that stuff is relatively carefully concealed. If you give us any kind of math on that, in March Madness last year, we did 25 million. Online just for that event for 2 weeks.
What do you think Hulu's revenue is right now?
Again...
Are they a client? They're not announced.
No.
So just guessing, what do you think their revenue is?
I don't know. I look at posts like yours on this.
I bet you do know.
I have a point of view. I mean, you can tell where the CPMs are and where they're matching, but...
So what's your point of view?
Bank should have a point of view. Again, hang on a second on that one.
So you just refuse to answer that question.
I'm not refusing. I'm going to answer it in a long-winded way, right? Jason, who's an extremely good guy at this, he's a good CEO and strong in execution in this, happens to believe that the right answer to this right now isn't in packing it with as many ads. I'm not to say he's going to get 30 Rock Go with number 1 and PSAs,
right.
But maybe he's going to go to a subscription model or get paid on the eye.
So he's not monetizing as hard as he could.
I don't think in general you would, by the way.
You think he's selling all the inventory he has already?
Maybe, but all the inventory is the available inventory for an online buyer. What I'm saying is go to the media planners who are in charge of television.
And they're not doing that yet, as far as you know.
I think you can start to scratch it, but I don't think you sell reach and frequency yet because those buyers aren't looking for it. I'm hopeful that in the upfronts, it's the clients and the agencies that are going to come in and say, that's great, but I want it on all screens. As soon as you have that conversation, the answer is keep it from a reach and frequency to begin. Future of television becomes to be about video.
Yeah.
As a content provider, you love that more than ever because all it means is it's not defense anymore. You're not acting like a dinosaur. You're extending the economics of television to online. And those are great economics. And a model, by the way, that seems to be working. So if you get that, it sounds defensive to say, but it's true. So if you get that, I'd say take the 1.2 billion, get rid of it, give it back to Google keyword ad buying. Go have fun with that. Yeah. Take the 70 billion of the real advertisers and marketers in the television industry and expand that relationship to online as well. And make sure that CSI isn't just sold on air versus online, but sold holistically. Yeah. That's what authentication is at its core. Yeah. So the trust
and revenue should increase by many times, right?
Yes.
Because if you look at the amount of revenue that Hulu gets from a video, it can't be more than a cent or two, right? I mean, looking at sort of normal CPM rate, maybe a few cents. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at like an average CBS, a top CBS show, if you start dividing the sort of revenue of the show divided by the number of viewers, you're more in the 50-cent range per viewer per show. I know you guys don't think of it that way.
We do the math on that a lot.
Like
by the way, the added thing about CBS Interactive is close relationship with guys like David Poltrack, who runs research for CBS. They're all allies in here. We're trying to figure this out together. Yeah. What we'll never say at CBS is hold off until we figure it out. It's there. Users want it. So you got to stream. But if you could be smarter inside of C3 or think about the trusted partners in Comcast, I mean, people always say, like, are you going to do an Apple subscription television model deal at CBS or something like that? I think it's a question of inevitably yes, but the issue is staging. How are you going to do that relationship first versus that, and where are the bigger economics to fall or not? And by the way, you're looking at DVD revenue, you're looking at syndication, you're looking at international. All these things could be additive if you just figure out, in the most holistic way. Think about a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet says, my CSI episode cost this much. I'm going to monetize it the final way on this. I'm going to use EST here, Netflix there. No Amazon Unbox for that one because the audience didn't go as well there. This is a little futuristic. Mobile, yes. Media flow that, Verizon that, and maybe bump it to CBS.com here and TV.com and maybe syndicate it out there, make it embeddable or not on YouTube. Right? That's the holistic way. By the way, 2.5 Men, totally different formula, totally different audience. Right? But the object is take the content to where the people want it and make sure you get paid for it in a way that makes sense.
Okay. What's the best show on television right now?
According to the numbers or according to...
Just your opinion.
My opinion definitely doesn't reflect the
numbers. You won't even fucking tell me... I'm sorry, let me cut that out. You won't even tell me your favorite TV show. I mean, I can get you an answer
totally
one
tell you my
single...
favorite TV show. My favorite TV show right now?
Is?
30 Rock.
Okay, mine too.
30 Rock's freak. But
I got him to answer one question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't include premium. Favorite overall, The Wire.
Yeah, I'm on season 2
Rip
of The
and
Wire
run.
right now.
Rip and run.
So this is gonna be a 5-minute video. We're now over half an hour, so it's great content though. So what else do you want to say? You know, like potential clients out there.
Well, there's a big opportunity there. Let's stop on TechCrunch. How about TechCrunch? Let's see that P&L. Where's your cap table? Bring it over. We can help you with some
Do
strategic
you guys
advice.
even have an office yet?
Doesn't matter.
You don't have an office yet.
We're wherever you need us to be.
Where's your office? Did you take? I heard there's an opening at Menlo Park
We have
office
two
where
offices.
CBS used to be. What?
We have
Survey
2
money.
offices.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have an office in San Francisco.
Yeah.
We have at
Yeah, so we have an office right now in the Ferry Building, just north of Ferry Building.
That's a nice building.
Yeah.
And then we have, we're moving in a new space in South Market, in
Okay.
San Francisco. And
But
then we
Fred,
have,
you live in New York, right?
we have offices in New York.
offices in New York. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right there in Midtown.
So what do you say about giving maybe free representation to one TechCrunch client? You guys have a little competition.
Always a
One
plan.
free transaction.
Nothing's free.
You're not getting nothing.
We're a startup, man. We need to make some money.
Have you guys closed any deals yet?
We're like
You've been
11 days old.
No, you're. Well, you got.
We're just launching.
But you didn't answer the question.
We close any deals?
It's an impossibility.
I hope we have organic on it. But no, there are no specific discrete transactions that have gone around.
You haven't got paid the
But
first.
let's
deal.
imply that we've tried and failed.
We've gotten paid.
Wow, you guys are slippery.
Bankers.
All right, there it's off.
No, it's not.
Oh.